He's not a balanced human being.
That's what I posted. He's actually mental.
Alright guys, we're in.
Mics are up. And this is Smooth Breakfast with Folu.
And with Valentine, and joining us this morning, we've got our analyst, Miss Ireti Bakare Yusuf, is in the studio. Good morning, Miss Ireti. How are you today?
Good morning, I'm fine, thank you.
Excellent stuff. We've also got Ugo Dre in the building. Good morning, Ugo Dre.
Yeah, morning, Lagos.
Looking quite dapper, back from his leave.
Yes.
And we've got Funmi Odude. Is leave now. Leave is break. I don't say you went on holiday.
He doesn't think it's long
There's
enough to be
distinction.
called leave.
Is leave. You are on leave. And we've got Funmi Odude in the studio as well. Good morning, Funmi.
Good morning, Lagos.
Now you can find our analysts respectively on their different handles. Sisi Oge Lagos is Miss Ireti Bakare Yusuf. Ugo Dre is at Ugo Dre is Ugo Dre, and at Funmi Odude is Funmi Odude of the same name.
Yes, so Lagos, sending your messages, be part of the show, and let us know what your thoughts are about the stories that we treat. Send it through WhatsApp to 0809 444 0981. On Twitter at Smooth981FM, use the hashtag FreshlyPressed981.
And now we delve into our first story. It's a little bit worrying, but the Premium Times gives us this story. Gunmen abduct 16 Nigerian miners. And this is an official police report, so who knows, the numbers may actually end up rising. But we are told that the Kaduna Police Command on Wednesday confirmed that 16 miners had been abducted by armed bandits in the Biringwari local government area. Now, for me, this is an area that is known for this sort of banditry or for violent attacks in general. But as to why these particular miners were taken, we're not really certain. But what are your thoughts on this story?
Okay, so it's a bit worrying. I know that we sort of get almost used to this kind of stories, and then we begin to forget that these are actually people's brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, and all of insecurity is still one of the major challenges we face in this country. And all we have paid to so far is lip service, because the truth of the matter is anything that we're going to do is going to involve money. We've been talking about for years training, equipment, gadgets, and all of that. All of that is going to cost money. And so far that we have seen, not much has been done in respect of that. The story says that the police has said that the kidnappers have started demanding for ransom, and that the police is making a discreet effort to track down the abductors. I'm not sure what that means. And the last part of the story says that the attacks have continued despite the establishment of an army barracks in the area. And I remember sometime this week we spoke, I think it was former IGP's Arasi's story that we're talking about in respect of the fact that in trying to solve the situation, rather than build up the Nigerian police force, we've just sort of replaced them with the Nigerian army to go tackle the insecurity that challenges that we're facing. And because of that, even our Nigerian army has become too stretched to be able to deal with all of those issues. And so this is the result of what we're seeing. The truth of the matter is, in order to deal with security challenges beyond paying lip service to it, the first sign of it will be how much we are putting to security and defense in our budget. It requires money to retrain these people. It requires money to get the adequate equipment that we need for security. Beyond that, all we're going to be doing is an ex-IGP or an ex-officer coming to say the same rhetoric. We actually need money in security.
Very interesting you mentioned this. Last time we mentioned money in security was towards the end of last year. This year there was a bit of an uproar about the 1 billion that was sort of put in that general direction. It would be curious as well, considering the fact that our budget implementation percentage is very, very low. Do you think that the outgoing administration or perhaps the incoming administration will be wanting to go back in that direction? Because again, as I mentioned, the last time we talked about apportioning a large chunk of money towards defenses, the public, there's actually quite a massive public outcry.
Yes, and that is because of the lack of trust we have when we hear those kind of figures. We generally just believe somebody is siphoning it somewhere. And so it's not just about telling us that figure is out there. We need to know what specific direction you're spending it. It's the same thing with the so-called security vote. The problem that we have with it is that it allows for a lot of discretion. So we don't know what you're using it for, and it allows for the lack of transparency allows for it to be easily siphoned. And if you're spending that amount of money, we should be able to know: are you buying planes? Are you buying drones? Are we using it for equipment, or are we using it for training, or are we using it? Nobody made so much of a noise when they said, okay, for this Osun elections, we are paying police officers this additional.
Oh no, there was a lot of noise made.
money, but at least we knew that money was going somewhere. So when you say I'm spending $1 billion in security, that's too vague, and it allows for us to suspect that our usual Nigerian way.
I mean, we were told the equipment, and then there was questions of, do we need this Tucano? What does the Super Tucano do? Anyways, but we'll move on. Thank you very much for that, Funmi. Ugo Dre, I'm going to come to you for the next story from the Punch newspaper. The FAAC didn't discuss Paris Club refund reversal to Benue. This is what's coming out from the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Finance, Mahmoud Dutse, on Wednesday. He says, listen, they didn't discuss the issue of the reversal of the Paris Club refund made to some states, and this was, of course, while responding to questions raised by journalists. Ugo Dre, your thoughts, please.
Paris Club, that's like that windfall.
Our savings,
Yeah,
our
so-
savings.
Our savings that has been billing our states since last year or two, right? Yeah, so this is basically the last tranche, and I think the first surfaced a few days ago that the federal government was going to hold back about I think two point something billion dollars to 5 states, Benue, Delta, River State, and I think Osun State as well. So, but then they kind of released Osun State's money a few days ago, 16 billion. So Benue and Delta State were very, very upset about this, and claimed that the government had no right to withhold their own money. But the government, hit back saying, look, we didn't withhold, nothing was withheld, and there was really nothing about withholding any state's fund. And the only thing they discussed was FAAC, and that they shared 741.8 billion.
Yes.
But remember, the government has always said that, look, before they release any tranche from Paris Club, state governments need
Have to
to
meet.
show that they've actually paid salaries from the previous ones that
Yeah.
they've given. So,
Yes.
so the reason now is that that's probably what has happened, that the state government did not pay salaries. So the state government is saying, look, we've cleared the salaries now, we've cleared it already, just pay us our money. But what's sad here is that, I mean, it's unfortunate that windfall like this, which is basically in a way supposed to be savings, savings that will accrue maybe over the years. Of
Yeah.
course, it was excess charges, but in a way, it's some kind of savings. You should actually divert money like this into a lot more developmental initiatives. But then we're using it to pay salaries, and that's because the country is kind of broke right now. So,
But then there's still minimum wage that's coming up.
oh, even though.
No.
Miss Ireti, I'm going to come to you for this next story. This one is from Daily Times. Nigerian women's participation in politics is the lowest in Africa. The INEC chairman has spoken out, saying that although women constitute 45% of Nigeria's voting population, please take note of our voting population, the national average in female representation stands at an abysmal 6.7%. Much lower than the global average of 22.5%, and even lower still than our fellow countries in the ECOWAS region, with Ghana being at least at 10.7% and Togo at 37.6%. Mr. Ireti, your thoughts as to why this representation is so low, and what do you think can be done or should be done to increase these figures?
Well, there are some thoughts that we're not allowed to share on radio. Really, there are because if I take myself for example, many people have often said to me, why don't you go into politics, and I said, well, there's something that those of us who are light skinned should carry a public health warning in Nigeria. It's almost an invitation to treat to have this color skin, especially when you're naturally light. So let's just say those are part of the barriers that stop women. Those who get it. How do they say it on social media? Or those who know or something. That's the one. If you get it, you get it. I can't go into it any further than that. But that is the honest truth. A lot of women feel harangued, and the amount of nonsensities that you have to tolerate, and the fact that a lot of political meetings are done at night. Who wants to do that? That's what most people don't realize. Politicians, really, you just see them in the day. Most of the work they do is done at night. And most women do not want to be a part of that. And as a female, I would not want to be a part of that. Even if I do care about my community, even if I do care about my country enough to want to put myself forward, you know, to both be verbally abused and threatened. I mean, look at the threats that Remi Tinubu had to deal with from Dingo Melaye, you know.
Dino Melaye.
That's the one, yes, that one. I forgot his name now. Yes, there you go. You know, those sort of things. And we can't dismiss such because that sends out the wrong message.
Absolutely.
You know,
Even
that's
recently
number
we saw
one.
a lawmaker in the north that was threatened
Exactly.
with they said they would release sexual photographs
Absolutely.
of her, and said if she didn't stop running, she should stay in the kitchen.
Exactly,
is what was said
absolutely.
to her.
So who needs to deal with such nonsense? That's number one. Number two is, do you want to correct it seriously? Because I always ask, in Nigeria, we give lip service, we make the right noise, we talk the right talk, we tell CNN what they want to hear, you know, sit straight when we're talking to the BBC. And yet, really, once we leave there, like, oh, I beg, make you no mind them, something, I'm not good with pigeon. Because if you really want to deal with this, then legislate for it. Legislate in favor of it. Put down your gauntlet and say, right, a certain percentage of the Senate of government, a certain percentage of the board, a certain percentage of education,
Political
wherever,
parties.
every political parties everywhere needs to be percentage of female. Right? Now, some would say, oh, you know, misery, you can't actually do that. You shouldn't do that, especially when it comes to private sector. Actually, I beg to differ. You can and you should do that because where the majority, and we are a majority, albeit just about 1%, but let's claim the majority that we are. The fact that when a majority is being ignored and being sidetracked, you know, then somebody has to do something. You need to step up and do affirmative action, and that's what we need here.
Thank you very much for that, Miss Ireti. If you really want to do something, legislate for it. I think that's something that we should quote there. Feel free to keep sending in the messages. The WhatsApp number is 0809 444 0981, and you can tweet at us. Use the hashtag FreshlyPress981 as we move on to the next story. So I'm a little bit positive. Let's talk about this from the Punch. Egmont Group lifts suspension on Nigeria. You will remember that in 2017 we were suspended. The NFIU, an arm of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, after the plenary because they said there was a lack of legal framework and autonomy. We've sort of, the suspension has been lifted, but Ugo Dre, is this good news?
Yes, Folu, very, very, very good news. Remember that we were suspended earlier this year. I think it was in July or thereabouts. First of all, there was, you know, the bit of the backstory. Sometime in February, the allegation was that somebody from NFIU actually went to lobby the Egmont Group to suspend Nigeria. I think they had internal fractions, and then later the story was that Buhari wasn't going to sign the deal that the National Assembly had put together because he had one or two issues with it. And then Egmont Group now and banned. So why is Egmont Group so important? This is a group that basically it's a group of member countries where they basically share financial intelligence, you know, to fight or combat money laundering. So with Nigeria, you know, out of the Egmont Group, what it meant or the danger was that if you're going to use your debit card abroad, then you would have a problem using it because some countries will just allow you to use your debit card there if you're a member of the Egmont Group. So it's a very, very important group to be in. So now that they've lifted that suspension, that is some good news. And it also clears the way for Nigeria to join, I think, what they call the Financial Action Task Force. That's another subgroup that Nigeria has been trying to enter for some time now. So with this, so we basically applied, you know, earlier in the year, and because of the suspension, you know, that application process was truncated. But now I think we can come back. So bottom line is, look, we don't need suspensions like this around the world. It's important that we are integrated into the global economy whichever way we can. And some of us still have, you know, issues using our debit cards abroad. So some are self-inflicted. Some are self-inflicted, you know, CBN barriers or CBN limitations and all of that.
Yes.
And then but what you don't want is international limitations, right? So I'm hoping that maybe with this lift, maybe Nigeria can, you know, we can start to use our PayPal accounts again. It's very difficult using Nigerian PayPal accounts and
we can only hope.
foreign, you know, payment channels.
Okay. Buy Nigerian. Local.
Yeah, we have local ones, but then, man, if you want to buy things, abroad, or you want to, pay for something online,
Yeah.
you need some of this.
It is problematic.
Things that can be very, very stressful.
Well, let's hope we stay in their good graces for the moment. Thank you very much for that, Ugo Dre. We move on.
We move on now to this next story from Pon. Come to you, Mr. Ireti, for this story. The headline reads: Chibok girls, lawyers sue federal government, demand reports on rescue efforts. Out of the 276 girls that were abducted back in April 2014, there's still 112 abducted Chibok girls left and still held in captivity by Boko Haram. So now the developing story is that they're suing the federal government along with the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mr. Abubakar Malami, for allegedly failing to rescue them from the terrorist captivity since 2014. And the lead counsel for this court, for this case is Mrs. Funmi Odude and other lawyers at the Falana Law Firm. They filed this suit on September 10th on behalf of the girls, asking the federal government to make sure, among other things, file a monthly report in the registry of the court in the effort to be made to free the girls. There's been a lot of silence by the government regarding this, Ms. Ireti.
I really applaud this. I think it's time the citizens of this country, and you could say we're going to turn Nigeria into what you call America again, where you sue all the time, but litigating society. But you know what? It needs to happen. I really, really applaud this step. I think that's the best way to force the government to do what they're supposed to do, to face up to its responsibilities. One of the things that I like is the fact that you have to give a monthly report.
Yeah.
As a project manager, given a monthly report is the one thing that keeps you on your toes. You've got to deliver every week, and every week you've got to have something to roll into the month. So you actually can't stand back and sit on your laurels or sit on your hands. And the half of the things they say in this country is because light did not come. No, your monthly report cannot include because light did not come. Yeah. If you have a problem, you've got to say why it happened, what you do, and what actions you took to mitigate it, why you didn't see it coming. And if it did happen, it's a force majeure that you can't control. What would you do better? So I like the fact that they're forcing them. It's not just one of those sort of aggressive pointing fingers, etc., etc. You were saying to the government, and it says here, Obese Koseli said, she alleged that the federal government and the AGF had remained aloof to the fate of the other girls still in the captivity of the abductors ever since. And that's the point here. We stopped hearing about the Chibok girls. That's the point here.
Yes.
We're in danger of forgetting those 112 that are left behind. Yeah. We're in danger of forgetting Leah Shuaib. That's the one.
Yes.
We're in danger of forgetting so many other children. So I would have liked this actually to have been a class action by all the parents who have had children go missing, if you like, as part of the Boko Haram war. Okay, who will say to the government, you know what, we want a monthly report on what you are doing to get back our children. That's what I would rather. But I do like this. It's really fantastic. You can't ask for anything better. I don't think you can ask for anything more, actually.
We will point out that Leah Sharibu's parents are suing actually the federal
That's right.
government as well.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to this next one. I'll come to you, Ugo, for this story from New Telegraph. New minimum wage. This is the elephant in the room. Labour shuts down Nigeria. So the Nigeria Labour Congress, they've directed all the workers in the public and private sectors across Nigeria to down tools and stay away from their workplaces beginning for today. The scary part for me was they said the leadership of the organized labor gave orders that all establishments, including banks, schools, courts, filling stations, should all shut down. Now, the representative of the federal government, as Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, in this matter said he did not know about the 14-day ultimatum. And we're looking at other things that we're trying to, curtail.
There was a time when you hear that it's going to be a national strike, you just be like, I need that. But
oh dear.
Not anymore.
I don't think anybody's excited about this again. I think we've had enough rest, enough holidays in this country for us to have anyone else to sit down. But to the main story, so let's look at it from two sides. So Labour is saying, look, had the exchange rate depreciate. They used 100%, it's actually about 47%.
Yes.
From 2014, they claim that floor prices have increased. Electricity prices, of course, has increased during this period. So things have basically gone up, and of course inflation rate, has been up as well.
Even rent.
So yeah, even rent. A lot of things have gone up. And they're saying that look, so wages actually haven't moved. Wages have basically been flat in their own view, and so to mitigate all these increases, excuse me, that they need to government needs to increase minimum wage. So increasing minimum wage basically, people think it's just one band of wage that goes up. Everybody's salary goes up. So far you're in the civil service, that's basically what they're trying to do. So for our friends in the civil service, yes, I mean, unlike the private sector where wages can be increased at any point in time, whenever they like, whenever the companies can't afford it. For government, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of labor. But government is saying, look, there's no money to pay minimum wage. We just talked about the Paris Club and how it's being used, to pay state government salary, civil service salary, civil servant salaries, and state government. So the government actually doesn't have money, and government has been running it. We've been running the deficit government for years now, deficit budget for years now, and government revenue is at an all-time low, like multi-year lows. We haven't seen lows like this before. So we're running major shortfalls. Debt to revenue, debt service revenue is also very high. So the government actually doesn't have money to pay for this. So it's a bit of an impasse here, and I think that as Nigerians understand that look, we don't have money to, we can't afford some of these things. It can be pretty annoying when you see government officials spending money on frivolous things that we don't need, and then building bridges to nowhere or some of these very elephant projects that materialize.
And paying themselves a lot of money
Yeah, a
in
lot of money as
allowances
well,
and
exactly,
salaries. And
exactly.
in the same vein, portraying the level of trust now doesn't seem to be as strong as it should be, and which is sad because as it is now, the Dr. Chris Ngige, the Minister of Labour and Employment, is saying that they rescheduled their sitting for October 4th. It just seems like just playing down on the severity of the situation.
It's a serious one. Even though Labour says this is just a warning strike and that the mother of all strike is still coming. This one is not the mother. Mother would look like. So the mother and father of all strikes is coming. So, but important start here. I think sometime mid this year, National Bureau of Statistics released data, and they said that wages and salaries actually grew 11% year-over-year in Nigeria, and that up to about 16 trillion. So yes, salaries for civil servants haven't gone up, but the private sector has basically, to an extent, moved salaries up a little bit. And so I think somewhere in between, the government should find a way to sort it out. But to be frank, we don't have that money. It's not just that.
What we do have at the moment are messages coming through. Delay up on WhatsApp says, talking about women in politics, says we need tough women who can duke it out with the men in politics, not women who are legislated into power, says Daily. Still more coming in. Chika, from Lekki, also disagreeing on the women's representations in politics. It says, well, Sarah Jibril in 2007 contested the presidential primary and got only one vote, and she gave herself, bearing in mind that a lot of women are delegates at the primary. In 2015, Remi Shonaya of Kowa ran for president. How many votes did she score? Actually, it was pretty decent. If it's indeed true that women are the most populated in this country, why is it that they all did not vote for her to win the election? # charity begins at home. Chika. Okay, let's keep it moving. Still more messages. Yinka sends in this one saying, see, I think the best thing is just to privatize this country so that there will be sanity. What exactly do these NLC guys do? Incremental wages will not guarantee higher spending power. What we should be looking at is the inflation in the country. NLC wants increase. NYC was promised 50K too. Where will they get the money? Asking.
Let's move on now to ThisDay newspaper for this next story. Skye Bank director is under investigation, says NDIC. So the managing director, chief executive officer of the Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation, NDIC, Mr. Umar Ibrahim, disclosed that the Skye Bank revocation, that the license being revoked really by the central bank, was based on the fact that they discovered that Mr. Tunde Ayeni and Dr. Festus Afadi, both the chairman and director of the defunct bank, respectively, took some of the money really from the bank to invest in several companies, including the acquisitions of Ibadan and Yola electricity distribution companies, Nitel, Mtel, an energy services firm, among others. Just spreading the flanks around.
This is actually very painful because when you and I do from a little income, okay, let's invest. Let's invest. Now we go buy shares. What happens is they use your money to run businesses, thereby reducing the dividends that you will get on your money. Because I mean, it's bad enough that the chairman and the directors have access to ridiculous amounts of loans. Most of those loans then become non-performing loans because they just fail to pay it back. So it is with shareholders' money that the chairman and the director are alleged to have invested heavily in companies. I mean, and these are not your regular small scale kind of business.
Yes.
We're talking about Ibadan electricity distribution company. We're talking about telecoms company. We're talking about energy services firm and all of that. So yes, the allegations are actually extremely very grievous, and we'll wait to see what the prosecution will bring about. In respect of when we look at the history that we've had, I remember the case of Cecilia Ibru, from the default to Shani back. Eventually, if I remember correctly, she entered into a plea bargain where a lot of her assets were handed over. We're still waiting patiently for Erastus Akingbola's case. It went all the way to the Supreme Court. No, I actually think that this time around, I mean, with the new administration of criminal justice act that has cut off all forms of interlocutory appeal, maybe it will move forward this time around. So we'll wait to see about the prosecution of this as well, but these are actually very grievous allegations, very grievous. The second part of the story is actually also very important. It talks about the CBN signing a memorandum of understanding with other African countries where Nigerian banks are located to protect investors' funds for collaboration when those banks fail. The numbers of failing banks actually, from the story, are actually very scary. According to the story, we have 49 banks that are currently, deposit money banks that are currently in liquidation. We have a total of 187 microfinance banks and 42 mortgage banks that are currently in liquidation. I think we need to look at that sector very closely.
All right, seems like the CBN is watching them really closely, so we'll follow that update later, but closely really at the same time. Moving on to the story, I'll skip to the story from ThisDay newspaper. Ambode takes up the Gauntlet, ready for primary. Mr. Ireti, this story in the detail says, after a brief deliberation on the rift between the national leadership of the All Progressives Congress, the leader, Senator Bola Tinubu, and the Lagos State Governor, Mr. Akinwu Ambode, that the state's highest advisory political organ, that's the Governor's Advisory Council, on Wednesday adjourned their meeting until Saturday to take a decision on the governor's re-election bid. Take us through the details on what your thoughts are on this.
Well, my thoughts are what to say. I need to share this mic with my sister from. Okay, from you take that mic, I'll take that because you're being mischievously funny. What is there to say? Tinubu is upset. Ambode is begging. Lagos is not working. The roads are dirty. Can somebody continue that rhyme for me? Because honestly, what is there to say? Look, nothing in this story surprises me. And I actually have to applaud Ambode for fighting. He's saying, look, I'm not going to go down just like that. I'm not going to lie down and play dead. I'm going to fight this for as much as I can. And at the same time, one has to applaud Tinubu for what he's doing, because he's saying, okay, right, you know what, you've upset the people, clearly. Because let's be frank, this is not really so much about Tinubu. This is about the fact that he's upset the people. Yeah. BRF had the grace and favor of the people, which somebody unfortunately doesn't have. And it would be nice for him to get another opportunity to win us back. But right now,
when you say
he's
BRF,
got to...
you mean Fashola?
Fashola, yes. Okay. He's got to fight for it. And that's what Tinubu is saying to him. Look, you know what, I'm going to open this thing, make it wide open. Normally, you would automatically get the ticket. Since the people don't like you, my boys don't like you, you know what? Go ahead, may the best man win. So let's see what happens. May the best man win without the waist train.
And that's the last story we'll be taking on Freshly Pressed 981 today. Lagos, thank you very much for your messages. Coming up next in 15 minutes, a special thanks to our analyst Ugo Dre, Bakare, Yusuf, and Funmi Odude. We'll be talking about entertainment inside the grapevine at 8:15. All right, so stay with us.
I investing in babies.
You guys should give me commission. I send this.